I was in the shower. I heard gunshots, and I think my wife shot herself.
I heard a boom, but I thought that it was a balloon, you know. Turned it off right out there, and she's laying there like that, right next to my bed. So I called 911.
Amen.
Amen.
When law enforcement shattered the door to enter 23 Felter Lane, they found no sign of struggle, no forced entry, only the chilling silence of death.
When EMTs arrived on the scene, they found Colenza's body in the bedroom with gunshot wounds.
In the bedroom lay Brandy Colenza, motionless, her chest stained with blood, a 9mm handgun resting beside her, no shattered glass, no traces of a fight. Security cameras captured every corner of the house except one, the bedroom. A 6-year-old child sat motionless in front of the TV screen, and the husband emerged, Keith Johansen, trembling, stammering a few words. She shot herself. Yet something felt off. Too neat, too clean, too conveniently timed. So, what truly transpired that night? Born in 1982 in Palm Coast, Florida, Keith Johansen grew up in a weathered wooden house with a rusted tin roof. Tangled in a fraying family fabric and absent father, a mother working grueling night shifts at a supermarket, leaving Keith to fend for himself, dismantling toolboxes instead of playing, from 7 years old. He obsessively took apart toy steering wheels and flashlights, reassembling them into crude weapons to shoot at wall-dwelling lizards. The long silences after his mother's shifts sired a twisted truth in his mind. Metal won't abandon you. People will. Was this the seed nurturing his thirst for control? In his 20s, Keith left school with an average diploma, drifting through menial jobs: dock laborer, plumber's assistant, delivery driver. Friends remembered a good-humored fixer.
What we saw was some of the most shocking footage that I've ever seen in my entire law enforcement career.
But police records unveiled another side to domestic violence restraining order violations in 2015, filed by an ex-girlfriend later dismissed but indelibly inked in security files. Though unconfined, the legal threat reminded him that any relationship can be torn apart if the other party knows how to scream for help. Henceforth, paranoia to lock down personal life anchored deep in his insecurities. By his early 30s, joblessness loomed relentlessly. Keith mortgaged devices, dreamed of opening a family security business. But mounting credit card debts burned the dream to ashes. Desperate, he offloaded surveillance gear, keeping only the finest cameras dotting his home. Daylight found him immersed in violent firearms forums and video game battles. Nights flickered with Facebook feeds of misogyny and racial hate, granting him virtual authority to shout, slander, and most of all, administer control over his real-life fortress. Every camera mounted overhead was a talisman against swelling anxieties. Yet, could these fortified walls echo the profound loneliness of a child fearful of darkness? Keith once boasted of launching the most advanced family security store in Palm Coast, specializing in cameras, motion sensors, smart locks, his so-called ultimate shield against intruders. But credit card bills piled high, months of unemployment stretched long, and red figures on debt statements eroded his resolve. When the business cradle closed, Keith didn't abandon control. He rigged his home with dense surveillance, turning his sanctuary into a personal bunker. Simultaneously, he spiraled into online gambling, squandering child support funds, a cycle of illegality and deepening failure. These spirals devoured finances and kindled an obsession. If he couldn't command his wallet, he would command every breath within his home. In 2015, Brandy Colenza, a 22-year-old single mother with meager income, yearning for a safe harbor, met Keith Johansen at an intracoastal riverside party. 3 weeks later, she and her 6-year-old son moved into 23 Felter Lane in Keith's old pickup. While unpacking, Keith assured Brandy her life here would be entirely safe, painting a hopeful new beginning. His promises sounded warm, but the first night, he drilled the wall, installed his first camera at the front door. He called it the Eye of Protection. Brandy saw care. Neighbors saw control obsession. By 2016, despite mounting debts and unemployment, Keith installed 14 infrared cameras throughout kitchen, hallways, backyard. Whenever Brandy left for the store, Keith's phone buzzed with motion alerts. He'd force her into video calls, scanning aisles as proof, initially compliant to avoid conflict. Brandy later begged him to stop, but Keith insisted on strict video mandates for their peace. Keith's failed security business left crushing debts. Bankruptcy drove him to firearms forums and violent gaming circles with virtual applause for misogynistic and racist jabs. Each like was a bullet eroding self-control. Posts grew more frequent, more bitter when ignored, nervous and hypersensitive. He started methamphetamine use to sharpen focus, descending into addiction. His once bright eyes hollowed, voice hoarse. Meth-induced paranoia fostered delusions that Brandy concealed secrets. In February 2017, neighbors called police amid pounding noises and shouts. "Don't hide from me." Officers found Brandy with swollen lips and bruised shoulders. She claimed a slip, while Keith stood calm with crossed arms. No charges, just a domestic dispute note. Post-incident, Keith replaced cheap cameras with high-res wide-angle lenses and a $40 hard drive recording 30 days. Nightly, he obsessively analyzed footage zooming on Brandy's shoelaces, crafting adultery stories from male co-workers glimpsed behind her in parking lots. Late homecomings earned rage-fueled threats and smashed beer cans. Brandy secretly texted her sister about Keith's instability and fear, but stayed silent. No refuge, scant savings, and a child in a nearby preschool. One night, when Brandy cut a live stream as her phone died, Keith pointed a 9mm at the shattered screen, accusing her of deceit. Surveillance recorded Brandy frozen in terror. When calm returned, Keith whispered ominously that if she disappeared, no one would believe her. For Brandy, the warning rang true. The cameras watched everywhere. Approaching 2018, Keith sank deeper into meth, purchased ammo, safes, backups, and SD cards, discovering him using her credit card. Brandy was slapped and told she owed him everything. The boy cried. Brandy clung to him while Keith drowned the house in TV noise, all caught on camera, later shown in court. Tension climaxed on April 5th, 2018, at 11:17 p.m. Cameras captured Keith violently shoving Brandy into the bedroom, clutching a 9mm handgun. Brandy sobbed uncontrollably, pleading for mercy, while Keith, consumed by rage, threatened that if she truly betrayed him, she should end her life to spare him the act.
Too many chances, man. Too many. Show a cop these videos. I'd rather be in prison. I could call in my homies and we both die.
Why?
Sure. I gave up everything on a chance. Somebody lied. Cheats. Does this and that.
Meanwhile, 6-year-old Rylan trembled silently in the hallway, witnessing the ordeal with bewildered innocence. Nearly 3 hours later, in the early dawn of April 6th, Keith quietly disconnected the bedroom camera cables, stashing them away in a bookshelf, erasing every trace within the house's most crucial space. The following morning, Brandy appeared at work with dark circles under her eyes, discreetly asking colleagues about affordable car rentals. She hinted at plans to flee, but was unable to act immediately. That evening, April 6th, she posted an urgent plea on Facebook Marketplace seeking to borrow a car, only for the post to vanish within minutes, deleted surreptitiously by Keith. Later that night, upon discovering his wife's contact with an old male friend from high school, Keith scrutinized her call logs, spotted the number, and promptly sent a chilling message warning the man he was about to learn what hell truly is. He then opened his safe, concealed a bag of methamphetamine within a coat pocket, and paced the house simultaneously. Brandy, clutching her child, silently messaged her sister if she went silent by morning. Alert the police immediately. In the early hours of April 7th, as Brandy sought water in the kitchen, Keith intercepted her, demanding to know her intended destination. She silently retreated to the bedroom, while Keith wandered naked between the bathroom and living room, sweat dripping.
Okay. I never had that take this serious.
At 10:23 a.m., he unplugged the modem, severing video feeds. By 10:33 a.m., hallway cameras recorded Keith wrapped in a towel heading toward the bedroom, an area deprived of surveillance since 2 days prior. This was the sole room devoid of security lenses, and just 4 minutes later, the doorbell microphone registered 2 successive gunshots. At 10:37 a.m., Keith reappeared, towelless, skin still glistening wet. He walked directly to the sofa, slipped a white bag of meth into the cushion, and only then dialed 911. In his call, Keith claimed his wife had just shot herself and that he heard 1 explosion while in the bathroom.
I thought it was a balloon.
How many shots did you hear?
2.
You heard 2?
And I thought it was a balloon at first. I ran out there and seen her laying there going, so I called you guys immediately.
However, exhaustive evidence from the crime scene to surveillance footage and autopsy reports gradually revealed the grim truth. Physical evidence immediately raised grave suspicions. Brandy Salenza's body lay on the bedroom floor, bearing 2 gunshot wounds, 1 rubber bullet, the other a live round piercing her right chest and lodging in the wall. There were no signs of struggle, no pools of blood, no physical damage indicative of altercation. The door showed no forced entry. The firearm rested near her lifeless form. Yet none of Brandy's fingerprints marred its trigger. Most tellingly, backspatter blood stained Keith's shirt impossible if he had truly stood distant, as he claimed. Further, water droplets trailing from the bathroom to the hallway had fully dried upon police arrival, proving Keith had left the bathroom well before the shots rang out. Built upon digital forensics from the very security cameras Keith installed to monitor his wife, the investigation advanced relentlessly, despite Keith's claim of ignorance regarding video storage. Authorities extracted comprehensive footage from provider Arlo. These recordings unveiled the perpetrator's real face, Keith incessantly berating, threatening, hurling objects, and even pointing a gun at Brandy inside their bedroom. All was meticulously documented, yet strikingly. Between 10:33 and 10:37 a.m. on April 7th, the exact window of the murder, the bedroom camera's signal was completely absent. Technicians confirmed the cables had been manually severed 2 days earlier, no technical glitch, but a deliberate blackout engineered to conceal the crime. Under interrogation, Johansen's story shifted, first claiming Brandy shot herself in the bathroom while he bathed, then citing accidental discharge.
She wakes you up. You get in the shower. You said she came in and messed with you in the shower. Okay. And then what happened?
And then about 3 minutes later, I heard pop. And I was like, what the heck? You know what I mean? So I just thought, oh, it was a fucking balloon. Then I heard pop, pop. You know, just, you know, that's how it went. Pop, pop. And I was like, something's wrong. Went out, slipped across the floor, was looking around. I didn't see her at first. And then I was like, what the heck, man? And I looked over and she was laying right there. Like this. And I was like, Brandy! Brandy! And at that point, there was no blood or nothing. I was like, Brandy! Brandy! And then I looked out and seen the guns, and I immediately called 911. I mean, immediately.
Did you hear a scream or anything?
No scream. No scream? No nothing. No.
Okay.
No. And it was very weird because there was no scream, you know, because I figured if you would have accidentally shot the gun or whatever, something would have been audible.
Mm-hmm.
And no, there's no screams, just her laying there going, that's what I knew.
When confronted with contradictory blood spatter evidence, he blamed neighbors' stray bullets. When confronted that Brandy left no fingerprints on the gun, he absurdly suggested their 6-year-old son had mishandled the weapon. Ultimately, facing indictment, Keith asserted self-defense, alleging Brandy, under meth-induced hallucinations, mistook him for a plastic person. Forensics experts reconstructed the scene, both shots fired from less than 30 centimeters, descending vertically, leaving scorching burns around the wounds, unequivocal proof of close-range firing. Incompatible with any suicide or struggle scenario Keith portrayed, Brandy exhibited no defensive wounds, pristine fingernails, unblemished wrists, untouched bedding, and a crime scene devoid of disturbance. The most damning twist emerged from an unlikely source, the kitchen camera, still operational. Recorded Keith moments after the shooting leaving the living room, opening a safe, withdrawing a white bag of meth, wiping the gun's handle with his shirt, and concealing the drugs in the sofa cushion. Only after staging this cover-up did he summon 911. This cold, calculated act betrayed not the instinct of a shocked husband witnessing his wife's suicide, but the calculated moves of a remorseless killer.
Instead, he is scrambling around, hiding drugs and drug paraphernalia.
Witness testimonies further cemented the brutal reality. Neighbors recalled hearing Brandy's anguished screams that morning. Keith stopped. Meanwhile, 6-year-old Ryland, during a confidential interview, recounted his father shouting, his mother screaming, and then 2 gunshots.
We did ask him. And you know what he told us? Do you want to know?
Yeah, because I wasn't up. So.
He told us that he heard his mom scream.
I heard no screams at all. None.
Why would he make that up?
Ask him.
Is he a liar?
He has been known to tell fibs, yes.
Does he tell you on the regular that his mom screams in the bedroom?
No.
Has he ever told you that his mom screams and it was a lie?
No, not screaming, but he lies about a bunch of other different things. You can ask his real father, and he'll tell you that too.
A child's untainted account, devoid of fabrication or deceit, became the definitive testimony, extinguishing all ambiguous defenses. Seemingly isolated fragments cut cameras, shifting confessions, incriminating blood patterns, implausible bullet trajectories. Deliberate evidence concealment wove into a stark tableau of a meticulously prepared murder. The bitter irony, the very surveillance system Keith installed to dominate his wife, became the incontrovertible evidence that condemned him, propelling him to the dock and sealing his fate under justice's unforgiving hand. In late October 2021, after over 3 years of meticulous inquiry, 39-year-old Keith Johansen faced trial in Flagler County. Across a 4-day courtroom drama, the prosecution unveiled the harrowing chapter of Brandy Salenza's life, steeped in abuse and terror. A pivotal piece of evidence presented to the jury was footage from April 5th, 2 days before the murder, depicting Keith screaming, insulting, and wielding a gun at Brandy. Not a spontaneous outburst, but as prosecutor Jennifer Dunton described, a visual warning foretelling a premeditated tragedy. The defense clung to a self-defense argument, asserting Brandy's meth intoxication provoked aggression, compelling Keith to fire. Yet forensic toxicology debunked this, showing Brandy's meth levels too low to induce hallucinations or loss of control. On the contrary, extensive surveillance footage and testimonies from neighbors, co-workers, and her young son portrayed Brandy lucid, vulnerable, and a victim caged in prolonged domination. From death threats to camera sabotage and methodical drug concealment before the 911 call. Keith's conduct transcended rash fury. It was the calculated coldness of a deliberate murderer. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, a jury composed of 8 men and 4 women unanimously found Keith Johansen guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Christopher France imposed a life sentence without parole, closing one of Florida's most shocking domestic violence cases in recent memory. As judgment was pronounced, Keith offered no emotion, no denials, no pleas, no remorse, simply submitting quietly to handcuffs. Opposite him, Brandy's family wept, while her sister uttered a heart-wrenching parting words. In June 2023, the 5th District Court of Appeal officially rejected the appeal, upholding the original sentence in full. Keith Johansen now serves his life term in a secure Florida prison, condemned to spend his remaining days behind bars, haunted by the indelible memory of the cold-blooded crime he ruthlessly committed. The case closed, but repercussions linger. Brandy Salenza's death was not merely the tragic end of a woman slain by the very man she had entrusted with all her hopes and faith. It was the inevitable consequence of a relationship nurtured by control, suspicion, and violence rather than love and respect. Keith Johansen's act of murder was no impulsive outburst. The investigation laid bare a man consumed by a pathological obsession with possession and a crippling fear of betrayal. Under the influence of drugs and compounded by mental instability, Keith spiraled into paranoia, convinced without a shred of evidence that Brandy was unfaithful. He refused to accept the possibility of her leaving him, and in a devastating crescendo of distorted ownership, he pulled the trigger. Brandy did not die from hatred. She died from a warped love called control. This case stands as a stark warning. Domestic violence does not always begin with bruises or bloodshed. It often starts with a suspicious glance, a cutting word, a phone check, and festers relentlessly over time. Thanks for tuning in to our channel. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new videos, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories. Don't miss out.